It's Brian Preston, the Money Guy.
All right, Brian, this next question, this is from Dustin. Dustin said, I've had a 401k for 16 years. It went up 37% last year and 46% this past year. Sounds like his 401k is doing really, really well. Here's his question. Is that the market doing that or my compound interest kicking in? And I feel like a lot of folks who maybe you're new to the show, or maybe you're new to investing, or maybe you didn't come from something where like money and finance and wealth was often talked about. And so you hear this idea of compounding interest, but then you also hear this stock market thing and you're trying to figure out how they work together. What would you tell Dustin? How would you like kind of walk him through what's actually taking place?
Well, let's talk about some basics, because I see this type of stuff show up on social media, and I want to clarify, because there's the return that your assets or the investments you make, what they create for you. But then there's a lot of people also, like if Dustin was looking at what his accounts were worth on January 1st and then what they're worth at the end of the year, well, there's returns in there, but there's also the ability that Dustin saved throughout the year. He might have been contributing to his 401k, and because he contributed, it's common, especially when you hear numbers like he made 30 and 40%. Those are huge returns. So that makes I'm like, scratch my head a little bit and go, is it truly he made that much money, or did the market perform well and you made 10, 15, even 20% in some good years, but then there's another 15 to 20% of the increase in value of his account that's actually his contributions to it. So that's the key indicator, is trying to understand what are the components that drive the value of your accounts, because it's going to come in multiple. It's going to have your initial beginning of the year. It's going to have your contributions, but then the change outside of what it started at, what your contribution is what the return is. That's the capital appreciation of the account. That's also any income minus the expenses that are coming through. That is truly what the return is. You need to understand, and you'll compare that return to what it was in basic arithmetic type math. We could do weighted averages and all this other stuff, but to keep it simple, you want to know what the true return, meaning how much are your army of dollars creating for you versus how much you put in. Now, compounding growth, when we talk about that concept, and I'm going to leave some of this for you to fill out, Bo, is we're talking about the fact that the bigger the accounts get, the more you'll make because you've hit a critical mass. And the example we give is somebody who has $10,000. If you make 10%, you make $1,000.
Yep.
That's good. It's great that you made $1,000, but probably $1,000 doesn't replace a month of your wages and income. Fast forward to when, instead of having $10,000, what if you have $100,000? Now, the same 10% return, so you can have the exact same investments, just you have more quantity of it. That 10% is going to make you $10,000. Now, there's a good chance $10,000 does replace a month of your income. So that's what we're talking about. You notice the return didn't change at all, but because the number was so much bigger, the mathematics or the critical mass of it was, when you start stacking that up, that's what the compounding growth we're talking about is.
That's right. Yeah, compound interest is sort of this, it's a mathematical construct, right? And this is a really easy thing to do. If you have $1 and you make 10% in year one, then you've got $1.10. Well, then if that $1.10 then makes 10% the next year, you make more than 10 cents, right? Not only are the dollars you put to work growing, but the growth, the earnings are growing on it. That's the idea of compounding interest. So it's a really fun thing.
Stacking up on top of each other.
Yeah, go take your financial calculator, just take a regular calculator, do $1 times 1.1, and then just keep doing that like 10 or 11 times, and you'll see your $1, what it could actually grow into. That's the idea behind what compounding interest is. Now, where the stock market plays in is it's the mechanism through which you recognize the rate of return. It's how you go out there and earn 10% because you say, hey, I'm willing to go buy ownership in this company. I want to become a shareholder of an Apple or a GE or a S&P 500 mutual fund. And for repayment of my risk in doing that, I get to participate in the profits from that company. That's where the growth, that's where the rate of return comes from. So the market generates the rate of return, And rates of return years over year are what create compounding interest inside of your investment account. It's not an either or, one or the other. They work together. That is the mathematics behind how your dollars grow when you put them to work.
Yeah, and the goal is ultimately when you get enough assets built up, you look at and this is why it's so important that people do net worth statements and you actually track where your assets are at, because one of my favorite games is, to look at with your assets is, did your assets, your army of dollars, create more than you made through earned income through your back, your hands, your brain? When you reach that point, congratulations, you're looking a lot like financial independence. Yep. And this is why it's so fun to understand the value and the power of compounding growth. Great question, Dustin.